in the darkest hours of the night, or perhaps the earliest rays of sunshine, depending on where you are in the world right now. Hope you like Netrunner, because we're going to be enjoying some more Netrunner games today. I've been catching up on the Chez supported standard format. It does indeed look like they banned Breached Dome, which I find to be entertaining on some level. Kakugo? Oh. They got rid of Kakugo? Oh well. I was quite surprised to see SSL get banned. That was pretty shocking, I suppose. I guess I understand. SSL is pretty ubiquitous. It's almost never a bad agenda to use. Does look like Lamb got shot down on the runner side. Liza Talking Thunder, I'm glad she's gone. DDoS, crowdfunding. All of these make sense to get rid of. Gold Farmer. Oh, I'm happy to see that one go. That was just a stupid card. It was so cheap, and it was just always guaranteed to tax the runner. So frustrating. Anyway, let's start watching some games, shall we? As always, if you happen on the off chance to see one of your games streamed here and it makes you uncomfortable that some wacko on the internet streaming your games, just feel free to let me know. I'll add you to a list. Won't stream your games anymore. Totally understandable. Otherwise, let's find something fun to watch tonight, shall we? First game of the night, Alice Merchant versus Asa. Should be interesting. Asa, of course, getting the free install whenever they install something in a server. Sorry, I worded that poorly. The first time you install a card each turn, you may install an additional non-agenda card from HQ in or protecting that server. What is this? Okay. What is happening? Okay. The Corp iced archives to prevent Alice Merchant's ID ability from trashing. So right out the gate, Alice Merchant uses diversion of funds to steal all the Corp's money and then just run archives with a dirty laundry run in art. Oh, that's beautiful. Forcing the Corp to trash. Looks like Breaker Bay Grid. Corp is able to bounce back here, though. They did have Rashida in that remote, so they're going to gain at least 3 credits back after that very unexpected diversion of funds play. Alice going straight back into archives. She's playing aggressive and saying, hey, look, put your money where your mouth is. You have a piece of ice on archives. Show it to me. Does end up being a drafter. Good piece of ice to have on archives in general. Add 1 card from archives to HQ, and you may install 1 card from archives or HQ, ignoring all costs. The Corp decides to reinstall Rashida Jaheim, it looks like. No, sorry, they add Rashida Jaheim to their hand and install an unseen card from HQ. However, things are moving quite quickly here. It looks like perhaps an agenda was trashed. I'm not sure. We have a scored Project Vitruvius. I missed that. A run on, I think it was R&D to steal. No, that was HQ. A run on HQ steals Project Vacheron. Let's make sure that yeah, Vitruvius was stolen from archives. Vacheron stolen from HQ. It's pretty rough first couple of turns for the Corp. The Corp tries to kind of just piece things back together by installing a card, playing fully operational to get a bit of money back. But Alice drives straight home into the remote on the next turn. Sees a Hagen, has to jack out, or rather has to let the subs fire. It ends the run. And now that they really wreaked havoc on the Corp with honestly very little resources spent on their part, they are ready to start setting up. They throw down their daily cast. Oh my goodness! A Wanton Destruction is going to trash 3 cards just straight out of this completely open HQ. The Corp, just desperately trying to get back in this, draws up twice and installs a new piece of ice in front of HQ. Finally catching on that this Alice Merchant deck is it's two-pronged, right? Uses the Alice ID to target archives, and then uses cards like Wanton Destruction and Diversion of Funds to focus on HQ. Now, the ice in front of HQ, very fortunate that zero cost to res vanilla. It is going to keep Alice out, keep all the shenanigans to a minimum. Alice then decides to check the remote and sees a team sponsorship and a Cyberdex virus suite, goes ahead and just trashes both of them. Get rid of them. Not playing your asset spam shenanigans today. Get rid of team sponsorship. She has the money, 10 credits, hasn't even installed anything except the daily cast. Here we go. We do see a hippo and a liberated account. That's just more money for Alice, and of course threatening the ice destruction once those breakers finally come out. My goodness, is the game going to normalize? Are things going to balance? Or is Alice just going to continue this kind of relentless onslaught? Asa creates a new remote with a single piece of ice in front of it. Alice contests it first thing. No, sorry, not first thing. Clicks twice on liberated, then contests the remote. It is just another Hagen, so with no programs installed, it's just going to be an end the run subroutine. She hits R&D and pulls a Mega Pre-Qualifier off the top. And just, yikes, that's game point, right? We're already on turn 8, but this game was lightning quick. And it feels like the Corp has just been playing on the back foot the entire time. I mean, they basically have been playing on the back foot this entire game. Desperately trying to draw ice, desperately trying to get money to res that ice. Just scrambling to keep the runner out of all these servers. And even still, they don't have enough ice to protect R&D. And there, Alice goes right back into R&D looking for the game-winning steal. We're going to see nothing. Click on liberated accounts, a draw, and a dirty laundry to check this unknown remote in server 4. Now earlier, the Corp did res Breaker Bay to res advanced assembly lines for free. They are at liberty to do that because if Alice would run the server, they could just use the trash ability on advanced assembly lines and use its effect before Alice accesses it. Now, in server 4, there was a base Cherbog. Alice went ahead and trashed that. Advanced assembly lines is used to install advanced assembly lines. Okay. And the card behind our Hagen here in the remote was a Hyperloop extension. So that's going to be a credit neutral score. Which is nice, because the Corp certainly doesn't want to lose any more money as it is. Alice tests R&D, and we see the third Hagen come out, and that's going to end the run, finally forcing Alice to actually install some breakers now if she wants to get somewhere. But, you know, 6 agenda points up. Well, 5 up, 6 total. I don't think she's too upset about that. We see a new piece of ice put down to protect the Breaker Bay grid, and another card, probably an asset, we would assume. Alice just runs right in and contests that as well. It is a gatekeeper. Very high code gate strength ice, but it doesn't really matter because Alice didn't even have the decoder in the bin to even contest it should she want to. However, the Corp does get the use of the draw up to 3 cards and then reveal up to 3 cards and shuffle. We couldn't see exactly, well, it looks like they decided to show 2 agendas and shuffle them back into R&D. Alice runs R&D, installs Paperclip, and decides to Hippo the Hagen on R&D, which is kind of interesting. But I think I see the logic behind it. She just wants to get in there to steal the last agenda. And Archives and HQ are a bit of a non-plus right now, especially after Gatekeeper fired and shuffled agendas from HQ into R&D. The Corp replaces the piece of ice on R&D, puts a new server behind the Hagen remote. Alice decides to blindly knifes right in, anticipating a barrier. The Corp decides just not to res. She gets in, doesn't see anything. This is an extremely aggressive Alice, and I kind of love it. It's terrifying. I would absolutely hate to play against it, but this is, in some ways, this is one of the most honest runner decks I've seen in a while. Because she isn't even doing anything degenerate right now. Or at least not what I would consider degenerate. I mean, the diversion of funds was spicy, but it made a lot of sense in an Alice deck. Wanton Destruction, same thing. You can clearly see that early on, Alice's attempt here is to smash Archives and HQ, and they get free accesses on R&D until the Corp scrambles enough to draw ice and get the money to res it. Now, the Corp has, again, normalized here. They have a lot of servers here with a single piece of ice, which seems to be their modus operandi because they're going to generate a lot of money off of fully operational. We see there they played fully operational last turn to gain 10 credits, putting them up to 16, which is pretty nice. I'm sure they feel very comfortable, at least credit-wise. I'm sure they feel very uncomfortable as far as the potential for Alice to snag just one more agenda. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what the scoring mechanism is for Asa. Is it going to be fast advance? We see a calibration testing, resed for free due to Breaker Bay grid. Not too bad, not too bad. Yeah, so it looks like the idea here is a fast advance using calibration testing, resing for free with Breaker Bay, and we see a team sponsorship. It's possible that they just put that calibration testing that they just used right back into that Breaker Bay server. Now, unfortunately, Gatekeeper does have a strength of 0, so it's not a terribly effective defensive card right now to protect that remote. But the team sponsorship actually installs this piece of ice here in front of the remote. It's unknown, so we don't know what it is. Hopefully it's something good enough to keep the runner out. Back to Alice, she takes a bit of time to set up, drawing 3 cards and playing Sure Gamble. Doesn't move forward for the win. I mean, she has a bit of time to wait, right? Mega Pre-Qualifier was scored. And because the runner already had a copy of Mega Pre-Qualifier, it actually counts as a 3-2. Hagen is rezzed on R&D after a just generic run from Alice onto R&D. Hagen broken, but nothing seen off the top. She triple clicks liberated accounts to show, yes, I still have plenty of money. I'm not worried about this. However, we don't see any other breakers in her archives. Sorry, her heap. Which is, I'm sure a little frustrating, but most of the ice she wants to get through here are barriers anyway, so the paperclip's still doing her fine. A new card installed in the Breaker Bay remote for the Corp, as well as a preemptive action to hopefully shuffle some good stuff back into R&D. We see a calibration testing and 2 unseen cards. Hippo gets played, trashes the Hagen, but it doesn't matter. Vitruvia is stolen right off the top of R&D. Yowza. That was just overall painful to watch. And I love it too, because Alice Merchant isn't what most people consider to be a top tier runner. This was just good plays by our runner. Like, very logical, very methodical, very, like, I want to call it game gripping, even though that's not a term. She just, right out the gate, grabbed hold of things, made really good, aggressive choices, never overplayed her hand, never tried to extend beyond her reach. She went where it made sense, where it was logical, where she could get the most and invest the least. And then when things finally did get iced up, she backed off and started installing things like Liberated Account and, you know, getting money from Sure Gamble and things like that. And I cannot believe this turn one diversion of funds from an Alice Merchant, followed by a wanton destruction. That's incredible. Yeah, it's not even that this Ace of Group deck was horrible or something. It's not. It's maybe not the most original deck, but there's not like some huge obvious error here. Clearly the idea is you use cards like Arella Salvatore and Calibration Testing, res for free from Breaker Bay, in order to fast advance your agendas. I realize now, advanced assembly lines, I think the reason that was rezzed on the runner's turn was so that you could trigger Ace's ability on the runner's turn. Because Ace only reads the first time you install a card each turn, and advanced assembly lines lets you do that on the runner's turn, allowing you effectively to double dip into your ID. Still though, I think the Corp did as best as they could. They just lost. Like, I don't know if there's any obvious answers. Like, who's gonna ice HQ against an Alice Merchant? Probably no one. Although, frankly, if I see an Alice Merchant now, I'm gonna get paranoid and ice HQ. I guess the only piece of, like, play that maybe should have been different is right off the bat on the first turn, they iced Archives, and then they ASA installed a new remote and an ice in front of that remote. And maybe what they should have done, seeing Alice, is just ice Archives, ice HQ, or R&D, depending on whether or not you had agendas in hand, and just clicked for money? But even then, like, it's not like what they did was a terrible plan or something, you know, it's not crazy that they iced Archives and created a new remote. Because at that point, they probably thought they were relatively safe. Yeah, R&D is open, but they weren't expecting the turn one hedge fund, or diversion of funds. That is so cool. Really like that Alice deck, really like the way the runner played it. Definitely it was fun to watch. Guess we get to see another one here. Same runner, same deck, looks like. We're on turn 4. And the outfit. So a Corp that wants to run a really fast game, score a bunch of money, and either blow up the runner quickly or score faster than the runner can keep up. Already we see a 2-tokened Atlas, which is very strong. It seems that Alice has had open reign on archives, and this is an interesting way. This is an option you have to play against Alice. You can just simply play without an HQ, and I think that might be what the Corp is sort of doing here. They're just saying, you know what, you can have the cards. You can have the cards in HQ. I'm not gonna fight it. I'll just play top deck, right? I'm just gonna draw out of R&D. I'm gonna play the cards as I get them. If you trash my cards, so be it. I'll just play with... It's just one less server I have to protect, right? Although they did put a piece of ice in front of HQ. Perhaps they're expecting the wanton destruction or the diversion of funds. Funnily enough, we see that Alice does have all their breakers in the bin this time, which was a stark difference from the last game. They still have plenty of money, though, with the double daily cast ticking down. A wanton destruction gets played, aimed at HQ. On the previous turn, the Corp used a too big to fail, gaining themselves a bad pub, which the runner will be able to use, of course, in the middle of their run. They used an Atlas token to actually pull that out. Apparently, they really wanted the money. The wanton destruction goes straight into HQ and trashes 2 cards. One of those was the auto draw from the Corp's beginning of turn, and then one of them was from a clicked draw. The Corp apparently either just didn't care about them or didn't want to res the ice on HQ, but allows Alice to just trash the entire HQ with wanton destruction. Alice uses her last click to check R&D, doesn't find anything. It goes back to the Corp, who mandatory draws a card and then clicks to draw. And I saw something in this remote. Now the Corp has money, and funnily enough, Alice hasn't stolen anything, which makes me think that perhaps the agenda density is fairly low for our Corp friend. Alice is going to check archives again, as well as triggering her ability. Now, something to consider, the way Alice's ID ability works is the Corp chooses which card is trashed, and Alice accesses it after the Corp chooses the trash, because it's when the run is successful that the trash happens, but before the runner actually accesses the cards. Anyway, she hits archives, she sees a hostile takeover, a Project Atlas, runs R&D, finds nothing, and then last click contests the remote on 18 credits, so she has some money here, and the breakers to theoretically break anything on this server. The Corp now has to face the decision of whether or not they want to res all this. Corp does have 20 credits. I'm a little confused. They just installed, or rather, the Corp reses border control and just immediately uses it to end the run. Perhaps they had no plans to res either of these 2 pieces of ice, so they didn't care about trying to drag the runner through the server. It was the runner's last click, so that is the Corp's right, so to say, if they want to just ensure the score that way. The double advance a hostile takeover. And then just draw up. Alice answers by using Wanton Destruction on HQ, sees a sandstone. It's going to be a 5-strength paperclip. 5-strength barrier, but it's only going to be 4 credits for paperclip to break through. And so effectively, we see 2 clicks spent to trash the cards in HQ, and then an Alice run on archives, trashing the last card in HQ. We access all of them, but still see no agendas. Kind of makes you feel like the Corp is getting a little lucky on the draw, perhaps? But I don't know, we do see 6 points on the board so far. 2 Atlases, 2 hostile takeovers. The runner has trashed a little over a third of their deck at this point. Has all the breakers they need in the bin. Oh my goodness. But you know what we see? The Corp decides to fight back. They draw Arc Lockdown using Archived Memories, and they Arc Lockdown the runner's MK Ultra. Both of them. It's quite possible that Alice only runs 2 copies of each breaker. We don't know. There could be a third one floating around somewhere, but now there are no MK Ultras currently in the game for Alice. And unless she has a third one and draws it and gets it on the board somehow, she's unable to break through killers right now. Which is not insignificant. She decides, though, to go ahead and check R&D, doesn't find anything, installs Trope to eventually pull cards back out of her heap, and installs a liberated account, so ensuring that she has money to work with in the future. The Corp installing a piece of ice behind, or sorry, something behind this giant remote, advances it once. Alice comes back in with a knifed, kills the sandstone that is protecting HQ. Accesses a hedge fund from HQ. Nothing good there. Jumps into archives, and the Corp chooses to trash what looks like a border control instead of the hedge fund they had in hand. Probably still feeling like they need more money for the super remote. Double advances Project Atlas. Sorry, triple advances Project Atlas. Scoring it out. Technically putting them on game point for any 3-2. Back on the runner's side, we see a triple click to draw. They must be looking for something. The Corp uses their last Project Atlas token to draw a Trebuchet and installs it, presumably, on R&D. Do they just feel comfortable with the cards they have in HQ? We know one of them is a hedge fund. They could just play the hedge fund now. They're deciding. We see another piece of ice on R&D. Are we going to see the hedge fund come out? Because otherwise... Wait, what? Click for a credit. Okay, well, we do see the diversion of funds come out from Alice. We saw that earlier. It's not going to be quite the powerful swing it was in the last game, but it's still a good move. 5 credits, you know, stolen from the Corp. However, too big to fail. Is going to shoot the Corp up 10 credits, so they're back up to 17. They're probably feeling pretty good about that. Rashida going to give the Corp more forward tempo, but don't discount the fact that the runner has 3 bad pub to work with on a run. City Works Project, sorry, is Dedication Ceremony. Now let's see if I can do the math on the meat damage correctly this time. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 meat damage. Now this can't be scored this turn due to Dedication Ceremony, adding 3 advancement tokens on that agenda. However, Oh, that's right. So the runner is acknowledging they have no killer. And they're assuming they lost, because if there's a killer with an end the run subroutine on here, the runner can't get through. There's also a trebuchet. I believe trebuchet is a sentry. The runner draws up 3 times and makes one last blind run into the remote. Oh, but there's the border control. That's going to be game. All the corp has to do is use it to end the run. I'm a little confused. Why the trebuchet was... Oh, I think they rezzed it just to show that the killer wasn't an end the run. And that's why they didn't feel that the game was over. Pretty wild. The arc lockdown was pretty spicy on as far as the effect it had, punishing the Anarch for using bin breakers. Yeah, the Corp played that pretty well. Methodical, even. They did make the... How would you describe that? Kind of corporate choice to sacrifice HQ and the cards in it in order to focus on R&D and the remote. The border control was very strong, allowed them to score 2 agendas. Although one of them was a hostile takeover, which is kind of funny, because you could have just scored that from hand. I'm not sure why they didn't. Maybe they didn't have enough clicks, or they wanted to spend those clicks elsewhere. Perhaps... Well, no. I was going to say, perhaps the runner could have still tried to get through the server if they had an extra click and were able to fight against the border control, but I think running through Trebuchet twice would have been too much. Plus whatever else is behind here. It just be like that sometimes, I guess. Okay, Akiko Nisei versus Building a Better World. So Transaction Wayland versus I See Things on R&D Shaper. Oh, we do get to see their cards this time. Again, if in a crazy world where this stream was more popular, I would be worried about someone using this to cheat. But let's be honest, I don't think anyone's really watching, so we're not going to be too worried about broadcasting this. So we have a hostile takeover and Audacity. Wait, what? Hold up. What's happening here? No, that was just a hedge fund. Hedge fund was used, Audacity was pitched. We see quite an agenda flooded HQ. 3 agendas in there. A lot of ice on the board, though. Plenty of protection, and Akiko here seems to indicate that they have no desire to run, playing Peace in Our Time. Of course, that's going to gain you 9 credits, but prevent you from running on the turn that you play it. They're kind of set up, sorta. They have an SMC and their killer on the board, 2 killers. And they have the Rozekis ticking down, but their hand. These are cards maybe you would want to see later, a little later in the game, or a little more when you're set up with all your breakers and you're ready to go. That being said, I'm sure they'll be able to make something happen here. The Corp decides to put a fourth piece of ice on the remote, installs a card behind this massive server, and advances it once. Akiko goes straight in with Stimhack and SMCs without even seeing anything. SMC's a lady. What if one of these is a code gate? Kind of feels strange. Feel like maybe you should have held on to the SMC, right? Till you knew what you were getting yourself into. But, ladies installed. Plenty of money. So the Corp decides strangely not to res anything. I don't really know why. I feel like you would probably want to res a lot of this, unless, of course, they cost things like, you know, agenda points or something. Like if this is an archer and an archer or something like that. But no, border control ends the run. This is weird. Why would you res a border control to end the run with near 30 credits and then not res any of this ice? That's a strange move. The Corp is very agenda flooded right now, though. We know that. But why not res the ice? Why are there 4 pieces of ice here? And the Corp isn't going to res any of it. We see double gatekeeper, guard. Are they trying to save their gatekeepers? Are they trying to save their sandstones? Because of course every time the runner hits sandstone it loses a single strength, but still, I don't think it really matters. You'd still force the runner to spend lady tokens. Plus, she doesn't even have a decoder, or she didn't. Now Euler is here, but okay. Anyway, the install on the remote was actually just a hostile takeover. Corp double advances it and plays Beanstalk Royalty to gain some money off of that. We saw a Kushik last run. We're going to see a Kushik this run. Kushik allowing you to access cards, extra cards, equal to the number of cards you have installed with the same value. It's kind of weird. Atlas stolen from HQ through a sandstone. Not surprising, considering all the agendas that we've seen the Corp holding on to. Corp draws and installs a Rashida in the server. Man, I don't know. I feel like as the Corp, make the runner come through here. Force them to run through here, and I guess they're going to do that now. The dedication ceremony of City works, and yeah, we see the border control hit the remote. Now this is a very powerful remote, because effectively, if the runner contests it, they're going to hit both of these gatekeepers. And then the Corp can just end the run, force the end the run due to border control, and make the runner hit all those gatekeepers again. Lady used to break border control, Lady used to break sandstone. Here we see the first gatekeeper. It's going to be a very high strength, very expensive to break using Oiler. In fact, so expensive, the runner says, okay, you got me. Go ahead and fire Gatekeeper. I'm not getting in there. It's a little funny because the runner does have 35 credits. Kind of feel like, I don't know, maybe I'd keep going, force the Corp to use their border control. 35 credits is so much money. I know Gatekeeper would be expensive, but it would be 8 credits. You can get through this. Now, I might jack out at the second Gatekeeper, but at least then you force the Corp to use another resource. Because, of course, Gatekeeper is going to lose its 6 strength on the next turn. I'm not sure what happened there. We saw a Maker's Eye run on R&D. It looks like there's going to be an undo. We're going to rerun that, apparently, using money from prepaid voice pad. So Maker's Eye, we're not going to res the guard, apparently. I'm really confused about the number of non-reses going on here. For 4 credits, you force the runner to spend 3 credits. I mean, I understand Ika is a really good killer. And it breaks the sentry, the guard, for just a single credit after that, but I don't know. I don't like this. A run on HQ goes past a Whoredom that remains unresed. Sandstone already existed. Going to be broken by Corroder, which was installed mid-run using SMC. Getting into HQ, sees a fast track. There really isn't anything in HQ worth protecting, so I do understand not resing the Whoredom there. There's no need to. You're not in any danger. We are going to get the score that City Works, though. That's nice. Gets it off the board and out of the Corp's hair. And does put them on game point. A third Beast of Ice goes on R&D. It is that Whoredom. We are going to see the res, and this is a little expensive. To break with Oiler. Runner spends 8 credits. I would advise maybe only spending 6 and letting the Corp gain a credit off of that, but perhaps they didn't want the pardon me, didn't want the Corp to gain that money back. We finally see the reses on this ice. Guard is res Ika, of course, being hosted on guard. The runner is going to come in here and hit HQ over and over again. But of course, we know there's nothing in here for them to get. Corp's next turn uses red level clearance to gain 2 credits for no clicks, effectively. And does it again. Essentially, by gaining a click with red level clearance, its secondary effect is clickless. And then they triple click. So net gain was 7 credits in that turn, putting them back up to a healthy amount where they can start resing ice again. Now, I know they ran out of money resing all this ice, and I know I was hard on them earlier. I said, no, why aren't you resing this? But still, I feel like resing is, in general, the right call. It's another piece of ice on R&D. And I failed to mention, every time Akiko hits R&D, a Psy game gets played. The Corp generally has to spend at least 1 credit to prevent Akiko from accessing one extra card. Maker's Eye on R&D is going to see a Sandstone on the outside, broken with Corroder. Whoredom broken with Oiler. What's happening here? Okay, so all the ice is broken. We get into R&D. We see a City Works stolen, and the game goes on. I need to see this Oiler break though. So the runner pays 4 credits to increase the strength of Oiler to 4. That makes sense. And break all 2 subroutines. All 2. Whoredom has... Oh, I'm a dunce. Whoredom does not have 3 subroutines. So earlier when I said she paid 8 credits to break Whoredom, she didn't. She only paid 6. And Oiler has to break 2 subroutines at once. So that nonsense I was talking about, where you could have let the corp gain a credit, was completely moot. Anyway, makes her way into R&D and finds the last agenda. Good game. That game, Loss versus Controlling the Message. Lost decks typically wanting to do a lot of res shenanigans. We even see a data dealer. And street magic? Interesting. Already Lost has 4 points. But Controlling the Message does have a lot of ice on the table, but only 11 credits? You have to think they probably want a little bit more money than that. We're on turn 6. Perhaps there was other ice resed previously, and it was de-res? No. Just checking here, I'm not seeing any evidence of... no, there was an Endless Eula. That was immediately emergency shutdown, so that's what happened there. That's why the corp is poor, with no resed ice. We see a ton of cards all piled into this remote from Controlling the Message, as well as a daily cast res. That's going to be a nice way to gain some much needed money. We'll have to see if Laws wants to even contest that, or just wants to let the corp keep gaining money off of that. It's going to be a Paul's Cafe bird deck. Which is going to discount the install cost of the birds for each unique connection. So we see 1, 2 so far. Very nice, because of course the birds have to be installed every time you use the de-res effect, or rather they have to be reinstalled if you want to use them again. The de-res effect returning them back to your hand. So yes, this is going to be, unsurprisingly, a Laws deck that focuses on de-resing ice. Once Laws' engine is set up, it's going to be a lot of run-in, break things with the birds, de-res them, and then rehost them to Paul's Cafe, installing them very, very cheaply. Cyber Trooper to loot, also a unique connection, so it's going to be a 3 credit discount. However, in a cheeky, bold move, the corp naked installs a Project Beal and just says, I'm going to score this. Is that okay with you? I'm getting this money from Daily Quest, you know? I just thought, why not? Just score Project Beal. Law's having to think a little bit here. Wants to make sure that they make the right move going forward. They have plenty of options, but this game is not over by any means. That daily quest is really going to be frustrating to deal with. Because unless Laws gets in here and trashes it, it's just going to be generating the corp money this entire time, which is counter to what strategies Laws players want to implement. Effectively, Laws players want to drain the corp's money by forcing them to res things over and over and over again. This daily quest is going to just be providing a ton of money. It's already generated 5 credits. And it's just going to be generating 3 extra credits every turn. Offset, of course, by the 1 res cost, which you only have to play on the first turn. Laws kind of gets a womp womp as they run into a Mumbad Virtual Tour. They're forced to trash it. However, they do trash it with Miss Bones, so they're not going to have to pay it completely out of pocket. However, controlling the message ID ability fires. We see a trace 4. Loss gaining a +1 link due to Cyber Trooper to loot. Decides to pay the 3 credits in order to prevent the tag. And then clicks Cotty Jones once. Cotty going to be able to generate Loss a lot of the money that he's going to need in the long term. We'll have to see if NBN can score out quick enough to avoid that long-term gain. Effectively, that's why D-Res decks like Laws don't work too well in a tournament setting. The games are over far too fast for the D-Res engine to be set up. And so the faster NBN moves right now, the better. And again, I can't understate how valuable the daily quest is to enabling the corp to move faster in this situation. 2 face downs from the last turn. One is revealed to be a daily business show, which is just going to allow the corp to filter their cards even more. And in a bold move, they decide to go ahead and trash their own daily quest, recognizing that the faster they move right now, the better. Lost doesn't have a ton of money, and comparatively, the corp has more than enough money to keep them out of this server. Lost decides to cash Cotty in early, only getting 6 credits off of her. It's not very great when you think about it was 2 credits to install Cotty, 1 click to install Cotty, and if a click is worth a credit, which I know people say you should never calculate it that way, but shush. We're going to calculate it as a credit for now. And 2 clicks to click her up, and 1 click to take the money back. Effectively, it's a net 0 gain. Now, of course, the turns after this that he uses Cotty will be better. But maybe, perhaps he's just looking at his bank and recognizing that he needs money now. Decides to bravado run into HQ. The corp does not res the HQ ice. Bravado doesn't reveal anything interesting. It reveals a Hua or a Jua. Not really sure how to pronounce that one. Anyway, no agendas or anything like that, allowing the corp to triple advance their Bologna on their turn. I feel like it's a buzzword lately, but Bologna is a credit neutral agenda, so they're not really even down any money. Now, because of the bravado run, as well as Sure Gamble, apparently, I missed that. Laws is sitting pretty at 19 credits. They decided to install yet another unique connection, meaning they're going to be able to install any of these birds for a 4 credit discount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sorry, a 5 credit discount. So all of these birds are free the first time. Each turn that you install a card from Paul's Cafe. We see the toll booth res, very expensive. But it is going to hit Law's first thing, forcing him to pay 3 credits. Now he installs his Peregrine for free, mind you. Or rather, I remind you. But now he has to look into breaking Toll Booth, which he does so with multi-threaded credits. Was it really only 4 credits to break Toll Booth? Yeah, it was. It's actually pretty good. The bird breakers have kind of wacky break ratios on certain pieces of ice. But 4 credits to break Toll Booth. Of course, it's still, you lose the 3 when you encounter it, so it's still kind of expensive. Laws decides not to bounce Toll Booth. Keeps going, sees an Authenticator, which is also a code gate. Uses Peregrine to break the Authenticator. Still not bouncing anything, though. They see a boom off the top of R&D and they trash it. And the Corp decides to install something in the super remote and advance it twice. Is it an agenda? Is it an NGO front? Very possible it's an NGO front. We see one in the bin already. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of feel like maybe what Laws should have done was run R&D and de-res the toll booth and jack out. But they decided to go in. They did prevent, or rather they were able to trash Boom. So it's not like they got out empty-handed. But the whole point of his strategy here is to de-res cards. I don't know. I don't like it. Because it also synergizes, of course, with Cyber Trooper to loot. Because when you're installing these birds off of Paul's Cafe for free, they're also gaining +2 strength. And now he makes a vanilla run here. Well, it's, I mean, yes, it's a vanilla run, but I mean a run in which he doesn't have Peregrine on Paul's Cafe because he didn't bounce it the D-Res toll booth. And now he's stuck looking at this code gate that he's going to have to pay 4 credits to break. Instead, he boomerangs it? Is that what happened? Yeah, he boomerangs Authenticator. Corp decides not to res any of the other pieces of ice, and they reveal that indeed, that was just an NGO front in the server. Law's forced to trash the Mumbad Virtual Tour, and actually hits a presec, which is just going to end the game due to the meat damage. They were running without any cards. I was a little nervous about that, but I thought, hey, you know, as long as you don't get tagged, you're probably safe. Turns out you're not, because presec is the thing. Yeah, I feel like that was a little bit of a kind of a trip. I feel like Laws had that. I really don't understand why he ran into R&D here and didn't derez the toll booth. That wouldn't have saved him from the price tag. He still needed to draw up for that run. It's just, why bother taking all the time to set all this up if you're just going to make non-bounce runs through the server? Oh well. It's tough. I probably would have made that mistake because I would assume that these were things like Mumbad Virtual Tour. You kind of always expect Mumbad Virtual Tour from CTM, but I wouldn't have expected the price tag, which probably shows my inexperience as a player. Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. Pretty deep into this game. Turn 15. Let's see if we can find a newer one. We'll sit here and wait a moment. Oh, thank goodness. All the currents have been removed from the game. That's beautiful. I will not miss those. "24/7 news cycle removed." That's fine. Nobody's gonna lose sleep over that. But Asmari EdTech was banned. What? Was Asmari just making too much money? I'm so sad Breach Dome is banned, though. I love that card. It was probably too good of a card, though. Too easy to get it to work. Haley Kaplan versus Genteki PE. PE, very effective, or sorry, very popular agenda, it seems like. Or words, Chesney. Very popular corp ID, it feels like lately. Mushin Noshin to open this up with Haley saying, you know what, fine, I don't care. I'm going to draw some cards, gamble some bets, and install some net chips and simul chips. Yes! Pardon me. Yes! This is great. Turn 2. Jinteki says, alright. Just Mushin Noshin's another card. Haley decides to call the bluff. Jumps in and checks that second Mushin Noshin card. It is an Obokata. They pay the cost. It's gotta hurt a little bit as Black Tree. You'd much rather have scored that, especially after you Mushin Noshin'd it. Yeah, it's gonna slow the runner down a little bit, but you never like to pass over 3 points as Black Tree. Black Tree installs an upgrade on R&D. It's probably a Mwanza grid. It's usually pretty popular upgrade in Black Tree. Previously, Haley took a bit more time to set up, draws cards, installs a hyperdrive and a Riseki. Back to Black Tree, they double remote and click for a credit. Haley pops the hyperdriver and looks forward to spending 6 clicks doing something. 7 clicks doing something. Draws up and checks the first remote and is rewarded with a Future Is Now. Checks the next remote, and it is a Psychic Field. Cygame is played. Haley guesses incorrectly and loses her entire hand. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. Corp double draws and installs a new remote. No, I'm sorry. Corp draws once, installs a new remote, and takes a credit. Haley checks one of the remotes and was rewarded with a House of Knives. She's guessing well. Very well. And even though she's down a couple cards here, doesn't really have a lot on the board, as long as she keeps this up, she'll just win. Black Tree needs to be a little more crafty. They install a piece of ice on R&D. Back to Haley. Haley goes right into HQ. Pulls a Sting. This is what I'm talking about. Doesn't even matter. We're not even playing Netrunner anymore. We're just playing, hey, I'm going to fish around and find your agendas. And I don't care if I lose my cards because I'll still win the game. This is the correct way to play against Black Tree. Haley isn't installing a bunch of cards. She's not panicking. She's not, you know, installing all her breakers and getting her engine set up. She recognizes that it doesn't matter if she loses her cards as long as she's getting agendas out of it. Now, that first Mushi Noshin card was, in fact, another Obokata. So the Corp double advances it and steals it. Or, sorry, double advances and scores it. And did actually use a stock buyback at some point to jump up to 27 credits. Doesn't matter. Haley goes straight into HQ twice, finds the Philotic Entanglement, and wins the game. Sheesh. In a couple ways, she did get a little bit lucky. But in a lot of ways, she was making all the right choices. Installed the Rizeki for a bit of extra money. Installed the Simul chip so that she could pull back a program when needed, because inevitably it's going to get trashed, right? So she could Simul chip to pull back, you know, a breaker, or even Simul chip to pull back an SMC, and then use the SMC to pull a breaker out of her stack, should she really need it. Now, we didn't get to see very much of this Black Tree's deck, but I would say that kind of perhaps a weakness. I don't want to be too critical of it because we really just didn't get to see very much of the deck. But there was no ice, right? There was this single piece of ice so far, and we saw, like, well, there's 8 cards in archives, 9, 10, 11. 11 cards. We don't know what these 2 face-down cards are, but we know that this isn't a nice and this isn't a nice. Depending on the kind of Black Tree deck you run, you don't necessarily need a ton of ice. But I gotta think that, you know, maybe if this is the kind of game plan you want, this is this what we got to see was a little bit coin flippy, right? It was kind of seemed like based on chance whether or not the Corp would win. Either the runner ran the servers or they didn't. If they didn't, the Corp scores out. If they do, the Corp loses. Or if the runner happens not to hit the right cards. Again, though, we just didn't get to see enough Black Tree's deck. They kind of just lost a bunch of agendas and then lost the game. Oh well. Wizard, what? Oh, are these our 2 Korean friends? It is, it is. Okay. Do we want to watch a core set game that basically doesn't follow the format? We could. We'll see if we can find a more standard game. It's not that I hate non-standard games at all. I'm glad people should have fun in any way they want. But personally, I prefer to operate in a gameplay format that has kind of like standardized expectations. That's okay. We can keep looking at all the cards they got rid of. Let me paste this into something. That way you can at least see it. Yeah, so these are all the cards we've gotten rid of, or rather, all the cards that are banned. I know it's not very big. Breach Dome, Brian Stinson. Why would you... We saw a game with Brian Stinson, didn't we? No, wait, I'm thinking of it, Anson Rose. No, Brian Stinson makes sense. Brian Stinson was the card that let you play basically money cards out of archives for free and gain ridiculous amounts of money. That was a silly, silly card. And I do not mourn the loss of it. What was Kayambe Grid? I recognize the name. It was the one that put free advancement tokens on ice, and then when the runner approached the server, they had to pay 2 credits for each advanced piece of ice. Was that part of a degenerate strategy or something? I mean, it's kind of a goofy card in general. I don't really like its design, but I also didn't see it played a whole lot. Clone suffrage movement. When your turn begins, you may add 1 operation from Archives HQ. Yeah, makes sense to get rid of clone suffrage movement. Now, good, we got rid of clone suffrage movement. Can we also get rid of team sponsorship? Friends in High Places, that's a no-brainer. There's no reason that Friends in High Places should exist. Gagarin Deep Space. A little surprised to see that one banned. It's kind of sad. I think, again, I understand why it was banned. Because it kind of led to prison-esque decks, where the runner just had no money, couldn't check servers, and inevitably would just get boomed into oblivion. But there's always something special about Gagarin, right? Okay. Haley Kaplan versus Polana Foods. Polana on the get-rich-quick scheme, and Haley, of course, with the double installs. Ice, no hedge fund, but a click for a credit. Haley does what all good shapers want to do, and that is not actually run, but just set up the beginnings of their crazy rig. Not a bad setup either. Beth Kilran going to gain tempo throughout the entire game, and an early tech writer is going to generate a lot of money over the course of the game, and SMC at least gives the runner options. An installed double advance from Polana, a little suspicious in that completely naked remote. You have to think maybe it's an NGO front. SMC used to pull out a Rozeki. Hyperdriver dropped and immediately used? Ah, right, off of the SMC Rozeki install, she was also able to trigger her ID and drop the Hyperdriver. Tech Writer clicking up a lot of money here. Mantle installed, Rozeki installed. Oh, and she did all of that SMC Rozeki stuff, SMC Rozeki Hyperdriver on the Corp's turn, so she got to take advantage of her double install twice. Back over to the Corp, they do nothing with this double advance card and install a new card behind a piece of ice. Goes back over to Haley, who did... What did she do on her turn? She just gained money and played Sure Gamble. Back to the Corp again, they're going to triple advance that card, scoring a Project Nisei. We have to think that this is an NGO front, I think that's, yeah, logically the only explanation. I wouldn't have ran that because there's no reason the Corp would have dropped so low on credits. Otherwise, with a double advance card open on the table, it just kind of signified that it was an NGO front. That's fine. They install another piece of ice on their already iced remote and put another card behind it, advancing it once. The single Nisei token going to already make things difficult for the runner to get into places, especially once the Corp starts rezzing ice. Haley continues to set up. They do have a Procon, which is helping them with their draw. They're starting to get a bit of money here. Cheeky Polana reveals that advanced card was another NGO front. NGO fronts certainly not uncommon, but two this early, you don't always expect that. It's all a third piece of ice in the remote and another something behind the triple iced remote. If it's another agenda, it's still already going to be difficult for Haley to get in. Polana's sitting at 15 credits and a Nisei token. Haley decides to keep setting up, though. A mantle makes me think she's got stealth breakers. Double advance on the card in the remote from Polana, followed by an IPO. Now, it could be a 5-3. Could theoretically be the third NGO front, although that would be pretty wild. Haley has 11 credits on Technical Writer whenever she needs it. Still just continuing to install things like a Mad Woman. We see net chips dropped, as well as a hyperdriver on top of them. It is indeed a 5-3 in that server. Polana correctly recognizing that Haley is doing nothing but setting up, and they need to win, and win now. So why not score a future perfect? That puts Polana on game point. Whoa. And the gauntlet is dropped as Haley installs a Stargate and goes straight into R&D with a stim hack. I think the stim hack might have been a little overzealous. Because what if Polana just doesn't res this? What are you going to spend the stim hack money on? I guess you install... Well, no. I'm being silly. Because you can still use SMC to install something and use the stim hack money that way. Okay, so we're going to see a Maven hosted on NetChip. So it is a NetChip Maven deck. We don't see the E3 implant, though. Now we see a Stargate run on R&D. Of course, that last run was just a stim hack run, and that was probably just done for the Maven installation credits, now that I realize that. Stargate run on R&D. Haley has to decide whether or not she wants to break this. She does, that makes sense. Now the Corp has to decide whether or not they stop the Stargate run with border control, or whether they want to just keep border control on R&D to continue to tax the runner. They do decide to stop the Stargate run, so we're not going to see a free trash, we're not going to see 3 cards, but Haley goes in anyway with a normal run, sees a Cyberdix Virus Suite, decides not to trash it. That makes sense, because that Cyberdix Virus Suite isn't going to really be doing Polana any favors right now, so it's kind of a wasted draw. There's an install in the remote and an advance. This could be the game-winning agenda here. Haley recognizing that threat, recognizing the Nisei token on the board, understanding that she needs to take this remote very seriously right now, decides to click 1, run in. Now she has 5 clicks thanks to Beth, so that's going to help her a lot. Engram flush resed. Surveyor. Okay, double Surveyor. Maven's going to be able to break through those. We get in and we see a Biovault. Nice. Very nice. It's going to waste a lot of the runner's money. Couple pro-con clicks, and then a Stargate run into R&D shows fast track, preemptive action, and thimble rig. Haley makes the sensible choice and trashes preemptive action. That hurts a little bit as the Corp. What can you do? You've got a wide open R&D and a Stargate on the table. At this point, the Corp's scoring window is rapidly closing. They draw up a bit, install a new piece of ice on R&D, just something to try and tax the runner. It's just a thimble rig, though. Unfortunately, though, Haley breaks it completely for free by spending tokens off of Mantle. And I'm starting to think Mantle is never here to power stealth breakers, is it? It's just here to act as a kind of like a baby multi-threader. And fuel Maven. It's also a very cheap program to install early on in the game, allowing Haley to set up quicker and trigger her ID ability. That's neat. It's a neat use of Mantle that doesn't involve stealth breakers. Anyway, Haley goes in, sees a Biovault, Rashida, and Satyr with her Stargate run. She trashes Satyr. She goes back in and sees a Biovault, trashes it, goes back in again, sees a Rashida Jaheim, trashes it. And that's her turn. Now, the Corp is in a lot of trouble right now. It's not necessarily their fault. Sometimes the cards just come to you in that kind of order. But Haley has a ton of money. Not only is she making money each turn due to Rizeki, but she's also, whenever she needs it, she can pull 19 credits off of Technical Writer. And she's got 2 free credits coming from Mantle each turn. She's pretty much set up. So the only real hope the Corp has is somehow being able to leverage that Nisei token on a super server here. But to do that, they need money, and they only have 5 credits right now. 3 now that they've rezzed the Engram Flush after a run on HQ. We're naming event. We're undoing the click because apparently we're going to do something different. I'm not sure why that happened, but going into HQ and seeing a fast track. Now, funnily enough, even though the Corp is in a bad spot, Haley hasn't scored any agenda points yet. Which means that the Corp still has a little bit of time. Still, though, it's a tough place to be in. Because you're only barely taxing the runner with these Engram flushes. Because you have to think Haley's just getting 3 more credits on the next turn. And you still haven't forced her to use that Technical Writer. Anytime she needs it, she's going to be able to use that Technical Writer to just plow into that remote. We also know she runs Stimpak. So you have to think she's also 9 credits higher at any given point than she actually appears to be. I don't think the Corp can win this. The corp draws a card and clicks for 2 credits, kind of just floundering a little bit. Not that I can blame them, I'm not really sure what they need to do right now. While Haley continues to relentlessly Stargate R&D, this time we see a Lacoste Grid, Obokata Protocol, and a hedge fund. Of course, we are going to trash that Obokata Protocol. Go back into HQ, or rather, going into HQ. And we see an IPO. Haley decides to go into archives to steal the Obokata. That makes sense, especially considering... Wait, I'm sorry, did we not steal? Oh. No notoriety is played for a free agenda point. Okay. Interesting. I mean, it's not like a bad move or something, just I didn't expect that. Oh, there are 2. I missed this. There's another Obokata Protocol in the bin. So kind of like in 2 turns, unless the corp does something, Haley's gonna win. Because she's gonna draw up, steal the Obokata, draw up again, and steal the next Obokata. However, we do know that Polana runs preemptive action. Now, whether or not this is their only copy of preemptive action, we don't know. And it doesn't look like they have a preemptive in hand, otherwise I would assume they would just shuffle Obokata back into R&D. So maybe they're going to go big or go home here. They install another piece of ice on the remote and put a card in the server behind the 4 iced remote. Haley goes ahead into the server. We don't see a res on that outer piece of ice. That outer piece of ice was more likely just put there to increase the strength of both the surveyors. Thimble rig easily broken with Maven, I would assume. Yeah, Maven breaks there. We're going to hit the first surveyor. That's going to be a very cheap break at just 2 credits. Sorry, 4 credits. Okay, not super cheap, but still comparatively cheap when you're looking at strength 8 ice with 2 subroutines. 4 credits is pretty decent to get through that. Now, Crafty Polana, Crafty Polana, actually did not put an agenda in that server. Instead, they had a Lacoste Grid and the Cyberdex virus suite. That's fantastic. Good on Polana. That was definitely a mind game. They know that the game-winning agendas are in the bin, and so they kind of pretended like they were like, oh no, we're going to install something in this server and score out if you go after those Obokatas, hoping the runner would run through here. They did. It was all for naught. And actually, Haley had to use their technical writer. There's a light at the end of the tunnel now for the corp. With the technical writer off the table, Haley's going to at least need to start being somewhat cautious of what she does and doesn't run. And another piece of ice on the remote is going to boost Surveyor's strength up to 10, which is 1 strength out of the range of Maven. Haley now has a difficult puzzle to solve. Now she installs Hyperdriver, uses Hyperdriver. Was this the right call? Oh, okay. So she's not even going to play around with the server anymore. I was going to say, Hyperdriver being installed increases the strength of Maven, right? but she uses it, which lowers the strength of Maven, but who cares? She's going to go into archives to steal the Obacadas. The Corp just goes ahead and concedes. I guess that's what you gotta do. Were they really out? Yeah, it looks like they were out. The hyperdriver would have allowed Haley to come in here, steal the Obacada, begin drawing up more cards, and then on the next turn just go back into it. Unless the Corp had a 3-2 somewhere, they could install... I don't know, was there the chance of a top deck? Because I don't think Haley steals both the Obacadas on this turn, right? They had 7 clicks, they had 4 cards in hand. So after this run, they have 6 more clicks. Oh no, what am I saying? After this run, they draw 4 more cards, go in and steal Obacada. So that is game. I'm being silly. That was close, though. Or closer at the end than I thought it was going to be. I liked that Polana was playing to their win here. They needed Surveyor to get up to a strength level outside of Maven's reach. Unfortunately, just due to the constant hammering of Stargate, it was too much. And the double Obacada trash is what killed them. Plus the notoriety. If it wasn't for the notoriety, it wouldn't be enough points to win. I liked that this was a Maven deck that didn't use E3 implants. I'm a little confused the E3 implants is back in the game. They like made so many good choices by doing things like getting rid of currents, getting rid of some pretty degenerate cards, but we add E3 back into the game. But this deck didn't rely on E3. Instead, it used Mantle to offset the cost of Maven, which I thought was pretty neat. Maven gains 1 strength for each installed program, so it also Mantle increases the strength of Maven as well. How many influence points did we see here? Just 1? 1, 2, 3, 4. We didn't even really see all the influence here. It's possible the E3 was still in here somewhere. But if it was, Haley didn't feel the pressure to go find it. Anyway, let's start a new game here, or see a new game here. Cabanesa Woo versus Replicating Perfection. Turn 2, the Corp throws down a total of Piece of Ice on R&D, Piece of Ice on HQ, and a Turtle Max with 2 remotes beyond the Turtle Bag. Cabanesa has... What did she do on her first turn? Looks like she just ran. Now she's going to take her second turn to set up a little bit. Pulls an SMC with her ID ability, drops a Rozeki from it, and double share gambles. Replicating Perfection, starting to see a lot of money coming in. Maryland campaign, 2 more cards, generating 2 more credits from Turtlebacks. Cabanesa test runs a Fem. Effectively installing it for just 3 credits due to the 3 credit cost of test run. Fem's Ike gets into HQ, steals a fetal AI, and now being granted access to the remotes, having made a run on a central server, hits a House of Knives, but finds the disgusting, the oh so disgusting Mumba Temple. How is Mumba Temple not gotten rid of? Museum of History is, but not Mumba Temple. Oh well. You win some, you lose some. The runner's doing just fine though, has 3 points. Little poor. Roseki's gonna help offset that though. She did lose Euler and Clot though, due to the fetal AI. And the Corp continuing to install remotes as they add in a new one, and ice archives. Probably icing archives just to prevent Cabanesa from running for free on archives to get rid of RP's condition to run the remotes. We see a second turtleback revealed, and this is where things start to get really ugly. Generating 2 credits. 2 credits for every new install. Cabanesa looking for something as she draws twice. Goes for a Palangi and takes a credit. Mumbat on the table. Team sponsorship on the table. And only 6 credits to Cabanesa's name. It's not looking like Cabanesa is going to be able to contest any of the assets on the table anymore. Unless she somehow wins the lottery. A new remote from RP. Heck, at this point, it's almost just like clicking for 2 credits. They have 19 credits, plenty of money to res the 2 pieces of ice unknown on the table. You have to wonder what they're going to do with all that money, though. If those other 2 pieces of ice are Ikes, it's not like they're going to be spending a lot on the ice. Cabanesa having to make some difficult decisions now. Decides to kind of set up here with a simulchip and a Q prognostic loop. Prognostic Q loop, rather. Lakshmi Fabrics. When you res a card, place 1 power counter, reveal an agenda. Yeah, okay. We're going to triple advance a House of Knives. It's going to be kind of annoying to ping the runner with House of Knives. Just more assets being set up here from Jinteki. We see the first one that the runner actually needs to care about, which is the Bioethics Association. I mean, the runner would love to actually care about these others, but they just can't afford to. But bioethics is one that you really can't let stick around for very long. Unless, of course, you want to get ground down. There's a run on HQ in which the Palangi is trashed with the simulchip in order to install Euler for free. And now Euler is, of course, going to be able to break the subroutines for free. Still need to pay a single credit, though, to boost up to the correct amount of strength. House of Knives pings... oh, how do you pronounce this? Gauss? Apparently it's not pronounced Gauss, it's Gauss. Probably a little frustrating. I'm sure Cabanesa would have rather installed Gauss. However, now she has the freedom, having made that run into HQ. Checks the remotes, sees a Mumba Temple, Whoa, sorry, hold on. Caesar Jeeves. The Lakashimi smart fabrics, I believe, preventing the steal of the Future Perfect. However, Kamanesa does get rid of the bioethics, so no more net damage at the beginning of every one of the corpse turns. Corp creates a new remote and double advances a card behind it. Kamanesa playing it safe, not even bothering to see what these other pieces of ice are. Goes right back into HQ. I'm a little confused. How did she only pay 2 credits? Pays 1 credit. Oh, okay. The strength increases listed previously. So yeah, for a total of 3 credits, she's breaking through I-Key. And decides at this point that there's nothing they can do to actually win this. It's a little frustrating for hang on one second. There's some kind of feedback here. There we go. That seems like it fixed it. Anyway, it's a little frustrating because each and every time the runner got into HQ, we saw Lakshmi fabrics preventing the steal. I believe is what was happening here. No? What was certain though, that's sorry, this is kind of an interaction that it makes sense when you read it, but I always like to see it in play. Because it's a little confusing. So effectively, every time you res a card, you get a power counter on Lakshmi. And the power counter can be spent, or rather multiples can be spent, to reveal an agenda worth points equal to the spent counters from HQ, and the runner cannot steal copies of that agenda for the remainder of the turn. I see. So earlier, the corp used how do you say that? Lakshmi fabrics, smart fabrics, spent 5 tokens and revealed the future perfect, effectively preventing it from even being stolen at all. But yeah, the runner just kind of looked at the situation, saw it was out of their control, didn't really want to grind out the game at that point, and conceded. Can't say I entirely blame them. I'm not super excited that Turtlebacks is in the game, back in the game, kind of for this reason. Nobody really wants to play against this. There's just nothing you can do unless you have a very, very specific setup against it. And even then, I don't know. I don't like team sponsorship. Turtlebacks just makes it all worse. And then Mumba Temple, of course, just making everything just complicated. Free money on top of free money on top of free recursive installs. It's rough. It's definitely rough. Are we gonna see a rematch here? Nah, different corp this time. What? Life Imagined. How exciting. Okay, so Haley versus Life Imagined. Life Imagined, of course, is going to have one of 3 ID abilities on the back of their card. You can kind of always assume that based on the way the corp is playing, you can kind of figure out which of the 3 is on the back. The one where you get to shuffle all of archives back into R&D is kind of terrible. I mean, it's not unusable, but out of the 3, it's kind of the one that tends to build the worst arch archetypes. So you can sort of go in assuming that it's either the one that deals 2 net damage or the one that deals, the one that fast advances, which helps narrow down the things you need to watch out for. Anyway, Haley roughly getting set up here, already has an Aesops, has a Procon. His Haley Maven build seems to be very, very popular lately. Run on the remote that Life Imagine has set up is going to reveal a border control. Border control being painted as a code gate by Palangi and then broken with Euler. Border control being used to end the run. Haley's faced with a choice now. Does she go back into the remote? She does. She has 2 more clicks. Oh. Brutal. So Anansi res, but a quick use of Simulchip allows a new Palangi, new air quotes, same card, but game considers it a new install. So she can use this Palangi to paint Anansi into a again, I assume it's just a barrier so that Euler can break it. Or sorry, a code gate so that Euler can break it. She even gets the free install on Hyperdriver, I believe, when she did that, due to her ID ability. Gets in and steals the Nisei. Looking at this, though, this might not be the Maven build. We don't see any net chips yet. And we don't see any... Or rather, we see actual breakers in the case of Euler. Anyway, we're going to run back into this remote on the next turn, which had a new piece of ice put in front of it. It is another border control. However, the card in the server is just a bio vault. Runner goes ahead and trashes that, drops an imp, and goes into HQ. It's very unlikely that the corp will be able to res this. Ah, well, we live in a world with engram flush, so I guess I shouldn't discount a corp with 2 credits. Engram flush names program. However, it is broken using Euler still. Since Euler was installed this turn, it's breaking everything for free. So that was just 3 credits to get through Engram. Back to the corp. They decide to purge virus counters to get rid of the imp token and the Palangi token. Previously, an Obokanda protocol was trashed using imp, I believe. Yeah. Goes into the bin. On the next turn, Haley draws up using Procon and goes in to steal the Obokanda, losing Nothing critical here. I suppose maybe the hunting ground would be nice to use against engram flush, but that's fine. See a third Palangi hit the table, and the corp just decides to go in for a second virus purge in a row. Is that wise? They're not gaining any forward tempo off this. I understand that the Palangi is frustrating, but I don't know if that second purge was warranted. We're going to see a new card installed in the remote, as well as a double click for 2 credits. Back to Haley. We're installing Money, Kill Ring, and the Mac Daddy R&D digger of them all, medium. If the corp wasn't purging a lot before, they're gonna purge a lot now. Or they're gonna ice R&D in anticipation of the R&D digs. Now, Nancy is a nice piece of ice to have there, protecting R&D. I'd feel fairly safe with that. Or safer than perhaps, you know, a thimble rig. But Haley has enough resources and tools to easily be able to get through that. We don't know what this piece of ice is on R&D. Hopefully it's something good. Another engram flush wouldn't be terrible. Especially because Haley's run out of the simulchip combo. At least for the time being. So she won't be able to install a free oiler. She'll have to spend 5 credits to break an engram instead of 3. Haley decides to procon twice, install an NK, click for a credit. Passing it back over to the corp, who now has a little bit of breathing room. Mandatory draw into an install in the remote and a double click for more credits. Anansi, Anansi is now live due to the 8 credits in the pool of the corp. Haley gonna turn 1, check out what's in that remote. Looks a little suspicious there with 2 cards in it. Easily breaks through the thimble rig. Lady chews right through border control. And we see an Arella Salvatore and a Lacosta grid. The Lacosta grid is trashed, paying 4 credits, but the Arella Salvatore stays. Oh. Apologies, I need to move my pop guard on the mic. Another piece of ice on R&D. Just really afraid of those medium digs. Can't say that I blame them. Haley decides to just click for 4 credits. And back on the corpse turn, we see an install of a new card in the remote, as well as clicking for even more credits to offset the cost of installing that third piece of ice on R&D. Oh, a very well-timed legwork. That's going to really help sweep out any agendas that happen to be hiding away in HQ. Haley only needs 2 more points to win the game. Very good chance that if there are any agendas in HQ, that she'll be able to get them here. She will access, what, 4 of the 5 cards? No, sorry, 3 of the 5 cards. Sees a Cyberdex, trashes it, sees a... 2 Cyberdexes, actually, trashes both of them. Not a bad time to run into those, considering that there were no tokens on medium. Then decides to go into R&D, perhaps feeling a little more confident now that those Virus Suite cards are gone. hits an engram flush, and hits a DNA tracker. She is able to get in, although it was a bit expensive. However, whatever she accessed wasn't an agenda. She dirty laundries into the remote. Are we going to see the agenda here? No, just another La Costa grid and an Arella Salvatore. Where are the agendas? You really do have to wonder at this point. Third install into the remote. Surely this is an agenda, right? But if you were the corp, would you really install an agenda like that, knowing full well that the runner can just get in there? You also don't have enough credits to advance it. Haley quadruple clicks for just more money. That goes back over to the corp, who now has to decide how they want to handle this. Oh, they flipped. They flipped. Oh, there it is. So it was the fast advance ID, and not a bad choice. Not a bad choice at all. Cyberdeck's Sandbox scored. That's going to serve them very well. And in an interesting interaction, they gain 4 credits when they score this due to the fact that it purges, and now they gain 4 credits on a purge. But they didn't have to spend the money to advance it because their ID ability did it for them. So in a way, not only did they get to score Cyberdecks, but they kind of got to benefit strictly from its money-gaining property right off the bat. So instead of being a credit neutral card, it actually accelerated them 4 credits. And here we go. We're going to purge virus counters just to gain a bit of money. 1 extra credit, as opposed to if they had just clicked for credits. Haley's still, though, just kind of clicking like mad for credits, turn after turn. She's got 39 credits, and a lot of this money has been gained just from selling things with Aesop and just clicking for credits. Corp has 4 pieces of ice on the remote and installs another new card in the server. We already know that one of them is an Arella Salvatore and the other is a La Costa grid, but what is this new mystery card? The Corp surely knows that Haley can get through any of his servers. So we'll have to see here what we end up finding. Engram Flush gets to fire. And we trash a turntable. Get to see the runner's hand. Stim hack, self-modifying code, diesel, procon, and another self-modifying code. Stim hack is relevant there. We'll need to keep that in the back of our head. Haley can get 9 credits on a run whenever she wants. Thimble rig swapping more ice here. The runner chewing through both border controls with Lady. And border control itself is going to end the run here. But will it be enough? It's enough to at least delay the runner for a turn, because they didn't have any Lady tokens. They couldn't go back in. But they install a simulchip, which means now they can reinstall Lady if need be. Now they did have another click after that simulchip install, but instead of running back into the remote, and installing Lady with Simulchip, they decide to click for a credit, probably because they're afraid of border control still kicking them out. The Corp triple clicks. The runner graciously points out that they should have just purged, and so they take another credit manually because they should have just purged to gain 4 credits. Haley goes back into the remote, uses Simulchip to install Lady like we were talking about. Breaks anagram flush. Cracks thimble rig for 2 credits with Euler. Lady's border control. Now, will we see the border control fire? Nope. That's game. Pretty cool. It was tough. It was definitely tough for the runner. Or, sorry, definitely tough for the Corp. I think that last Simulchip was what saved Haley, though. I'm not seeing really anything else that allows her to recur her ladies, although we don't know if maybe perhaps she had more ladies in hand. It is a little strange we don't see any of the dogs in the bin. So there could have been another lady in hand that we don't know of. It was a nice try from Life Imagined to use the border control during a time where the lady tokens had run out in an attempt to score the Nisei, but it's rough, right? All of these agendas are really rough to score because you can't never advance them. I really liked the interaction with the greenhouse and Cyberdeck sandbox, but Jinteki Life Imagined is a hard ID to pull off. It's a fun ID. It feels like it has so much potential, right? It feels very iconic of Jinteki in general. This ID that can be one of 3 things, and you're never really sure what it's going to be, and, you know, always keep your opponent guessing. It's very Jinteki. The problem is that the so there's the greenhouse, the brewery, and I can't remember what the other one is, but the one that shuffles archives into R&D is just kind of terrible, and because of that, it sort of ruins the randomness of the deck, right? Because instead of having to guess between 3 IDs, you're sort of really only guessing between 2. And if your opponent doesn't seem like they're set up to do net damage, then it's probably the fast advance ID, aka the greenhouse. I love the idea behind Life Imagined. It's just hard to actually make work. Okay, next game. Quetzal, the green-haired beauty, versus Builder of Nations, Wayland. Right off the bat, we already see there is an NGO front. That was used to trick the runner into a run through a mausolus. I think is what happened there. Corp puts another piece of... I gotta stop saying piece. Puts a new card behind the remote, protected by the mausolus, and advances the mausolus, threatening that meat damage if the runner wants to go back through. Nice. Nice. Okay, this is an interaction with E3 implants that I don't hate. Mostly because this is kind of neat. Quetzal can break, of course, any barrier subroutine, right? So with E3 implants, she can break a barrier subroutine and then E3 her way through a single piece of ice. I like this because Quetzal kind of isn't, she's not really like high tier, right? So like any kind of synergy that makes Quetzal a little bit better is fun because she's not really broken in any sort of way. Anyway, that card behind Mausolus was just a wall-to-wall. We're going to see another advancement on a piece of ice. Mass commercialization is probably going to come out next turn or a turn or two after that. Quetzal grabs 2 credits, installs Kati, and clicks Kati. She's down to 0 credits. And yet indeed, wall-to-wall puts an advancement token on a piece of ice. Manual advancement on the last piece of ice. And then mass commercialization is going to gain a whopping 10 credits. Putting the corp at 22, and Quetzal is sitting very poor at 0. Now, Kati is being used here, so there is a little money in the kitty, but you can't only rely on Kati for your economy. Kati's just too slow. Kati's good, but it needs to be more. Another ice is advanced. Mass commercialization comes out again, gaining the corp another 12 credits. The corp is sitting pretty at 34. They have plenty of money to do whatever they want right now. And I do question the efficiency of Quetzal's deck. Kati being clicked, but wait. Why are we throwing away a dirty laundry? Quetzal needs money. Why not dirty laundry into archives? That was interesting. That's fine though. Things happen, I suppose. Urban Renewal is revealed. Now this is going to shut down wall-to-wall. Wall-to-wall now can only activate 1 effect per turn. But that's fine. Urban Renewal will eventually remove itself, and then wall-to-wall will be reactivated. Recognizing that she kind of needs to get rid of Urban Renewal, Quetzal takes Kati's money, installs Boomerang. Boomerang's the piece of ice in front of Urban Renewal. Normally I harp on runners who boomerang unres pieces of ice for several reasons, but this is a case where I think it's okay to do so, because you kind of expect the corp is always going to want to res the ice in front of an Urban Renewal. Goes ahead, uses Boomerang to cut out the 2 important subroutines, the second and third, lets the corp fire the first one, gets in, trashes the Urban Renewal, so that's a little bit of time bought for the moment, right? It does turn wall-to-wall back on, but, I mean, small price to pay to prevent yourself from taking, what, 4 meat damage? Yeah. Quetzal decides to take a try at R&D, although that was ballsy, considering that Wayland has all the money in the world, and Quetzal has basically nothing. Sees an Auquette. Auquette fires. Gets to put an advancement token on another piece of ice. And ends the run. Ooh, we see a sea source. This is the Scorched Earth coming out. Yep. So with all that money, we see a sea source easily landing a tag, and Scorched Earth finishing the runner off. A more classic combo there really isn't in Netrunner. A good friend of mine who loves to play Netrunner probably more than I do, jokingly said that they were going to sit their friends down one day and, how did he put it? He said, "Sit down, let me tell you a story about Netrunner." "How do you play, Grandpa?" "Well, you take 2 tags and I scorch your earth." So definitely funny to see that back in the game after having Scorch Earth removed for so long. Okay, Smoke versus Jemison. Interesting. Jemison, not an entirely common Wayland ID. Whenever you forfeit an agenda, place 1 advancement token on a card and 1 additional token for each agenda point the agenda was worth. So we see already they've scored 3 agendas, but only actually possessing 1 agenda point. Standoff here being fake agenda points. Or rather, fake agendas, I should say. Kind of like the Runner fan site. So Jemison does have a bit of money from the scoring of Hostile Takeover as well as Standoff. Standoff, of course, gaining you 5 credits and a draw, unless the runner decides to play chicken with you, and then you both start trashing your own cards until somebody gives in. And but it doesn't look like the runner tried to contest that. So Jemison does have the 15. On their next turn, they decide to install new remote with 2 cards behind it. We'll have to see how Smoke wants to respond to this. Smoke doesn't have a ton of cards set up right now. Procon is nice this early. So she double installs Mantle and runs into R&D. Mantle generating 1 credit, 1 stealth credit that you can use on hardware or programs. Rashida was the asset in server 4, giving the corp a nice bit of draw. The money's nice too, but the draw is more important right now. A new card gets installed into server 4, and Oberth Protocol, oh no. Oh no. Oberth Protocol, coupled with Jemison's ID ability, is going to allow a 5 advanced Project Atlas scored, which means 2 Atlas tokens. You gotta be a little worried about a corp that can draw any 2 cards from their R&D whenever they want. Smoke Diesels and Deuces Wild, just to gain a credit and 2 cards. Dirty Laundry into R&D, why not? It's free. Penrose installed. Probably mostly just to have it installed. Still having the Oberth Protocol, Jemison installs a new card, gets that free advancement token, and double advances it. Smoke needs to do something about this Oberth Protocol, otherwise Jemison is free to score anything that requires 3 advancement tokens out of hand. Smoke sure gambles, throws down an after image, and decides, okay, that Oberth Protocol has to go. She has a decoder and a killer, so a barrier will keep her out. Corp has to decide whether or not they want to res this. 12 credits? It's enough to probably res whatever is on here. But 12 credits isn't a ton of money. Prognostic Q loop is going to be activated, paying a credit to install self-modified code. but that puts the runner over their MU, so they decide instead to undo that. Prognostic Q loop is kind of a weird one. When you make a run, you can look at the top 2 cards, and then if you want, you can pay a credit to install the top card if it's a program or hardware. Kind of a nifty little way to scry through your deck. Anyway, Oberth Protocol is gone now. We've trashed that. Why did we overwrite our ice? I think the ice was overwritten here, in the server, in the remote, and a new card put behind it. Smoke making the logical choice to just check the open R&D, runs R&D, sees an Arella Salvatore, and trashes it. It's not that trashing the Arella Salvatore is bad, I'm just a little confused why she didn't go back in after trashing it. But alright, runs the remote, sees a Tithonium, which of course in Jemison you're going to want to use agendas to offset the cost of that card. And it is a barrier. That's going to spell big trouble for the runner. 2 programs hit the bin, as well as a resource, and that is probably game. Like, it is going to be very difficult for the runner to come back after that. They lost Penrose, they lost After Image, and they lost Procon. Those cards, installation costs alone are 12 credits. Not to mention the lost tempo of now needing to find those cards again and reinstall them. Another Oberth Protocol is used to score a Global Food Initiative helped along with Audacity. And that's going to be game. Pretty neat. Even the runner says the corpse deck is neat because they haven't seen it so far. It's true, not many people play Jemison. There's not a lot of card support for Jemison. Even the corp is admitting that Jemison can be clunky at times. But they do something that no other corp deck does, which is focus on spending agendas. They're also the only ID that probably ever wants to use Oberth Protocol. Oh well. Pretty cool. Nice to see a different corp ID. Oh boy. Oh boy, guys. It's another Haley deck. Oh man, I wonder what we're gonna see. So it seems like there's 2 main Haley decks on the market right now. There's the Maven Haley deck, and then there's the other one we've seen. The sell your Euler and Gauss just so that you can reinstall it and get the added on install benefit. It is against another builder of nations, looking for that free meat damage, as well as fueling mass commercialization. Wall to wall, currently rezzed, gaining 3 actions because there's no other rezzed asset on the table. No agendas scored so far. Haley pretty set up here as far as a good solid start to their breaker suite and their economy engine. We already see Procon, we see 2 technical writers, now a Rozeki. This is definitely a Haley that wants to use Aesops. The Harbinger kind of reveals that. But we don't see an Aesops yet, but it doesn't matter. With the technical writer money, as long as Haley doesn't do something crazy, she's going to have a lot of options, especially as the game progresses. The Corroder is interesting. Makes it difficult to know whether this is a Maven deck or a... It might be... Now, the existence of Corroder kind of makes you think it's not the Gauss Euler deck. So this is probably a Maven deck. Would be my guess. Because why would you have Corroder if you also used Gauss? Anyway, the Corp creates a new server, puts something behind that server, and adds another piece of ice to R&D. Never a bad idea to ice R&D against a Shaper. If the indexing doesn't kill you, the mediums will. Or the Maker's Eye. Or the Kushik. Or the everything else that targets R&D from Shaper. Haley drops Hyperdriver to gain 3 clicks. Procons 3 times. 4 times. Yikes, we are going deep. What are we looking for? E3. Yeah, it's definitely a Maven deck then. Another Simul Chip. Another Hyperdriver. We could pop the Hyperdriver now if we wanted to. No. Gonna leave that be. No, I'm silly. You can't use Hyperdriver mid-turn. You have to use it at the beginning of your turn. Still though, 21 credits off the technical writers if needed. And the longer Haley can delay using those, the more money they're going to get. However, Builder of Nations, not poor by any means, and getting to fire off all 3 of these abilities each turn from wall to wall, or 3 of the 4 abilities, I should say. Typically, you're never going to use the 4th ability unless you have a specific reason to, so the top 3 abilities are almost always going to be the ones chosen. A naked remote is created, and another ice is advanced. That was not done in the correct order. Look at that. Mass commercialization was played. Then the ice was advanced? It should have been backwards. The ice should have been advanced and then mass commercialization would have been played. We'll see if it matters. The Corp would have been at 19 credits instead of 17, but who knows? Might not end up being important. It is late. Perhaps people are just a bit tired. I don't know though. I guess as I learned last night, maybe people are just waking up and having lunch, so I guess it just depends on where you are. Another Rozeki, another Harbinger. Yeah. It's not that I hate Haley or something, it's just that Haley basically plays solitaire for like the first 5 turns, right? What turn are we on? Gosh, we're already on turn 8. And Haley really hasn't just hasn't done anything, right? And not that that's... It is what she should be doing, right? Like, absolutely, she should just be setting up for a lot of reasons. First off, that's what she wants to do in the first place. Like, she wants to get this engine set up. She needs to get Maven out, a high strength Maven. Um, that's the whole point of this Maven E3 combo. But also, the Corp is giving her no reason to move quickly. Like, no reason whatsoever. And effectively, the Corp is just kind of handing this game over to Haley. They don't have a ton of money to show for this compared to the situation that they find themselves in. They don't have any agenda scored. The only thing they have is a bunch of ice with advancement tokens on them. On them. But is that going to be enough? We see in the archives, we see an urban renewal, which kind of signifies that maybe they want to go more towards the whole meat damage angle of Builder of Nations. But very quickly, Haley's going to skyrocket ahead of Builder of Nations in money. Looks like we have another spectator, and they're excited because the runner is using a list a deck list very similar to the one they wrote. Apparently, this Giles Davis person is the person we have to blame for the popularity of the Haley Maven deck. Curse you, Giles Davis, for dominating the runner scene. No, I kid. That's great. Congratulations. But yeah, back to what we were saying. I don't see Builder of Nations being able to pull off a hard-hitting news, right? Because Haley's going to have the money here to contest hard-hitting news when she starts running. They haven't scored any agendas. They're not threatening copious amounts of meat damage. Haley still has 22 cards left over as HP. We're kind of waiting on this Doc Bacon guy, the Corp, to take their turn. I don't know if he is experiencing technical difficulties or perhaps fallen asleep at the keyboard. I don't know. Regardless, I don't think Builder Nations is going to be able to win this. We might need to leave if we don't get any forward movement on this game, though. There's not much else to look at. Yeah. Well, we're going to duck out of this mostly just because I'd like to see something that's moving along. So let's go check out Lat versus Building a Better World. Transaction Wayland versus I want to match the number of cards you have in your hand lat. We're on turn 4. And there was a run on R&D with an Angolo. The Angolo was used to break a 6 strength gatekeeper. Indexing allowed a rearrangement of the top 5 cards of R&D. A nice little interaction with Deuce's Wild. This is pretty cool. The 2 prepaid voice pads allow you to play Deuce's Wild to a much greater effect. For 4 credits, we're still breaking through this gatekeeper, which is just nuts. Cannot believe Angolo breaks gatekeeper for 4 credits, a fully powered gatekeeper. But they knew what they were getting out of R&D due to the indexing, and Lat manages to grab a Project Atlas, ending their turn and drawing a extra card due to matching the number of cards in the hand of the Corp. Corp installs a card and double advances. No, apologies. They play Too Big to Fail. Now, that's kind of funny to see coming out of Building a Better World. I understand it is a transaction, I believe. Yeah. So they're gaining an extra credit from it, but the bad publicity makes me nervous. In a deck that, or rather in an ID that maybe necessarily doesn't synergize with bad publicity. But I mean, it was a good time to use Too Big to Fail. The Corp was kind of low on money and they needed the extra oomph. Goes back over to the runner, who is having a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out what they want to do. Do they want to try to contest this remote? Do they want to just leave it be? 2 credits will get you through Gatekeeper. It is 0 strength now. But due to the indexing run from before, Lat should already know what's in there. So maybe there's nothing good, nothing worth going in for. So instead, he decides to go for a setup. Uses Deuce's Wild to gain a net of 3 credits and 2 cards. Again, pretty good value when paired with prepaid voice pad. Of course, prepaid voice pad has to be activated 3 times before you even break even. So it's not completely free, right? But Deuce's Wild is definitely going to help you get to that break-even point. And then once you get there, you're just making money off of your prepaid voice pads, which is nice. Of course, because 2 credits to install and then a click to install in the first place. Anyway, he decides to set up installing Ika, Simulchip, and Beth. Continuing to match the Corp's hand size, getting a free card draw. We're going to see a hedge fund come out of the Corp, followed by another advancement of the card in server 1. You kind of have to think that that's not a 5-3. Okay, yeah. So Aurelia Salvatore res just before the scoring of The Future Is Now. Now, what are we going to see put in its place? We are going to see a new card. I believe it has to be an agenda with Aurela Salvatore. No, it can be anything. But assumedly, this card here installed is an agenda with an advancement token on it. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. I don't know how they installed a card here and a piece of ice. They undid their click. They're going to try to fix things now. Oh, they installed it manually. I see. Before the score of the Future Is Now. The Future Is Now pulls possibly the City Works that just got installed. Maybe not. We have no real way of knowing since we can't see the card that the Future Is Now pulled. But City Works is placed down, has an advancement token on it. It's going to require 3 meat damage to steal. Not undoable by Lat, but he would also have to make it through this ice. He's kind of poor right now. No, he's pretty poor right now. Just a meager credit. He does use prepaid voice pad to dirty laundry. Which means he's going to get 5 credits back. Effectively just clicking for 5 credits. And then Anakim is going to let him draw a card off of that. Pretty good value. I think that was the 3rd time we saw prepaid voice pad used, so it's broken even now. And every use of it after this is going to just be value. The final prepaid voice pad installed. Is it too late for the 3rd one? Nah, probably not. It's only turn 6. As long as he uses it each turn, it'll pay for itself. And then be forward momentum over time. He uses Harmony AR therapy already to put back a Deuces Wild, another Harmony AR therapy. Indexing Simulchip Sure Gamble. The advantage of using Harmony AR therapy early is that you don't... No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of something completely different. No, there's no specific advantage to using it early. Other than maybe you just want to get it out of your hand. The Corp dedication ceremony is the Face Up Cityworks project, making it that much more difficult to steal. It's unlikely Lat is going to go for that. That would be 8 cards they would need to have. Sorry, I always do this wrong. It's 2 plus the number of advancement tokens, so 7 cards. Judging by the bravado run he just made. Well, no, he still has time. He could draw up twice and make the run. Beth Kilrain Chang has given him an extra click this turn, so he does have a 5-click turn. He bravados into R&D, sees Rashida, trashes it, draws a card with Anakim. Diesels. No, it looks like we're not going to go for this City Works. We're just going to let that slide. Indexes into R&D. Pretty good time to do it. And Golo, again, just getting into R&D for 2 credits on each run. He's going to see 5 new cards. Arrange them any way he wants. And gets to jump right on back in. presumably to grab an agenda. Indexing super strong. I was kind of glad when it got replaced with Kushuk, and they got rid of indexing, but they added it back in, and it's, I don't know, it's very iconic of Shaper. I'm not trying to say like it's a terrible design or something, but it is a very strong card, and it removes a lot of the risk and randomness of Netrunner by allowing the runner to essentially vet the cards they receive. Now, that being said, the Corp probably should have iced R&D against the Shaper a little more, so it's kind of the Corp's fault that Lat is able to jump in here and keep doing this. But they kind of were making the right choice, though, because they're just focused on scoring agendas of their own. So when their turn rolls around, they score the City Works, use Arella to immediately install the Future Perfect. Sorry, the Future is Now. Presumably they're going to also trigger Arella Salvatore again, due to the fact that the Future is Now is going to allow them to pull another card. And if they wanted an agenda card, they could certainly grab it. If they have Audacity in hand, they can Audacity this and win, because all they need now is just 2 more agenda points. But their last click is a draw. Perhaps it's not, or rather, perhaps they don't have Audacity in hand, would be my guess. Back over to Lat, we're going to Shore Gamble. Oh my goodness. I completely forgot. Prepaid voice pad can literally be used on any event. Right. No, there's... I now know why this card was banned. Or not banned, it rotated and they didn't save it back when Fantasy Flight Games was the one handling the game, because this is a very good card, isn't it? It's almost guaranteed each turn to generate a credit, because who doesn't play events each turn? Anyway, the runner decides to go in and check this remote. Funnily enough, the card that was put in Server 1 and Advanced was simply another Arella Salvatore. The runner got a little bit bamboozled there. He accidentally trashed the face down Salvatore, decided that that probably wasn't a great idea, and so the Corp is manually reinstalling it. The runner says he realized that trashing Arella Salvatore doesn't really do anything for him anymore, since if the Corp scores an agenda, they're going to have won the game anyway, which is not entirely true. The Corp technically could score the Future is Now and not win the game, and also still get the trigger on Arella, but I kind of understand the logic, right? There's a good chance that the Corp is going to win on the next score. They decide to run HQ. They see a beanstalk royalty, not much help there. Corp is going to gain back some of that money with a hedge fund. Tough spots on both sides. If Lat manages to score a City Works project, he would be on game point. Otherwise, he's 2 agendas away from winning. The Corp possibly, arguably, being on game point, unless, of course, the aforementioned The Future Is Now score. Oh, what is this? What is this? Lucky Find is back in the game? You are kidding me. The old pre-pad Lucky Find combo. This used to be the thing. Yeah, there it is. For 0 credits and 2 clicks, you just gain 9 credits. It's huge. Yeah, old combos never die, I guess, especially when they're reintroduced to the game. Anyway, back to the Corp. We're seeing just kind of money gained. I think the Corp may be looking for an agenda. They had a window to score, but they weren't able to capitalize on it. And each turn that passes, the Corp's window is closing. Lat is getting more and more set up, gaining more and more money. We see the 3rd index. No, just the 2nd. No, wait. This has to be the 3rd index. Did he AR therapy and index in? Yeah. So this is the 3rd index. 3rd of potentially 4th index due to AR therapy putting a 4th one back in the deck. But this might just be the end of the game, depending on whether or not the indexing sees a City Works. Lat going back in after the indexing run, we'll see what he ends up putting on top for himself. Just a hostile takeover. Now, is there going to be a 2nd run? There is. This kind of signifies that maybe this is the game-winning move. Perhaps we will see another Atlas, or maybe another hostile. No, just another 1-pointer. The 3rd run doesn't come, so in spite of finding 2 agendas, Lat still hasn't won. But he is most definitely on game point now. 6 agenda points. 1 more agenda will do it for him. It's not looking great for the Corp, but you never know. Lat might get incredibly unlucky and just not be able to secure that last point. He makes a final run on HQ and sees an Audacity. That's a little nervous. Or what am I trying to say? That could make the runner a little nervous, because if Wayland draws the last Project Atlas, they can fast advance it with an Audacity. Wayland draws and puts 2 pieces of ice down, 1 on HQ and 1 on R&D. Ooh, a rebirth? Who are we rebirthing into? Who would we even want? Okay, Kit. Kit's gonna synergize with Ngolo. Another run on R&D. Now, this seems wrong. Shouldn't Kit already know what this card is due to the prior indexing run? We'll see, though. She runs R&D. Mausolus, ironically, is already a code gate. Oh, okay. So she ran R&D probably specifically for the turning wheel counter. Because she jacks out right when she gets to the gatekeeper. Wayland manages to still retain a respectable amount of money by using IPO after spending 3 credits to install a 4th piece of ice on the remote. Another Afshar on HQ is a little frustrating to see as the runner. Of course, you can only break one of those subroutines, and Ngolo is going to cost a credit to break one. And then, of course, the runner forcing the Corp to lose 2 credits if they want to get through. However, Kit is actually just paying 2 credits. Sorry, paying a credit to break the runner loses 2 credits, if that makes sense. So effectively, they're paying a credit and a click to put a token on turning wheel, which makes sense in this situation because Lat has plenty of money and he just wants turning wheel counters. That also accomplishes the goal of kind of testing the waters, seeing what the ice is, seeing if the corp is willing to res it, forcing the corp to res it. A bravado run on R&D. Pretty nice. Ngolo is going to be able to break through both the Mausolus and the Gatekeeper, as well as earning back most, if not all, of the money used to break these subroutines. Will the turning wheel counters be counters, but only one effect of turning wheel counter? Yes. It is spent, but it's all for naught because, no, it is important. The second card is the Project Atlas. That's going to be game. That's too bad. If Wayland had hung in there just a little while longer, they could have drawn the Atlas themselves and then audacity'd it. But they would have had to top deck it if they wanted to score at the same turn they drew it. Otherwise, they'd have to survive with it in hand. There was a chance, right? There was a chance Wayland could still win. But the runner managed to find the last point they needed and pulled the win out. Oh my goodness, it's getting late. Can't believe I've been talking about Netrunner for 3 hours. So, for any of you still here kicking and watching, thank you as always for sticking around, listening to some crazy person on the internet talk about Netrunner. Otherwise, I hope you have a fantastic day. Maybe I'll see you in the next one, and take care out there.